going to really want to share is just this. So that should work. We're going to go into IntelliJ. We're going to start a new project. I would call it something like sort. And then we need two classes inside of that. We need a sort.java and a test sort.java. New project. So this is an entirely new piece in IntelliJ. I'm trying to decide. Really don't need that for me sitting here. I'm trying to decide if I like the personally, I like sort of like the high contrast because partly because go away. Pause, hide floating meeting controls. No, I really want to get rid of this view. What did I just do? Hide self view. No. All right, how do I get out of this? I don't want speaker view. I don't want gallery view. What the hell is immersive view? I don't want immersive view. I just want this to go away so I can see my screen again. Literally, end the meeting. Anybody? They've totally changed the interface. I don't want to end the meeting. I just want this particular piece to go away. There we go. Okay. That's not really what I want either, but whatever. All right, that'll work. Maybe. Yep.
I think Sienna just sent me an email.
Okay, really like to send me an email, so I will check, but yeah. Don't be sending me emails 5 minutes into class, because I don't check my email during class. I don't know that I be checking my email during class. Okay. So little bit of no, see, now I need this to go actually. Let's just do that. There we go. And that. And I need background screen here. All right, and see now I should be able to go in and hide self view. Hide floating panel, that'll work. And we're gonna go over here. So how do you test your code? So you've got this array deck. How do we test it? What? Really? That's how you test your code? What autograder?
Give us like an autograder like we did for the array deck.
You've got an autograder?
You're gonna give us an autograder. Like
I am? Says who? All right, so in AP class, how did you test your code? Tony, how did you test your code in AP? In previous classes.
You do different cases.
Can you check the grading criteria if it's an AP?
So it's an autograder, right? So yes, used an autograder in the past. So autograders, what are good things about autograders?
They sometimes tell you like where you get it wrong.
Let's make 10-minute emails too. They sometimes, what do you mean they sometimes tell you if you get it wrong?
Code test, like they'll tell you like, oh, which part of the code you got it wrong, so you can check the right thing.
Yeah, so it should give us an idea of where I had, not only that I have a problem, right? I'm not getting the right answer. Sometimes, what are some of the problems with the AP autograder? Could you potentially have the right code, but be failing the autograder? Yeah. Not necessarily the right code. Could you have code that was working that failed the autograder?
Yeah.
Okay. So how have we been testing our code in this class? What do you mean?
You will plug in the number and then you should have an ideal result, like ideal output.
And where are you plugging? What do you mean to say when you say you plug in the number? Where are you doing that?
In the main.
Yeah, so you're just using your main method to sort of test some things out.
Yeah.
Right? How are you deciding what to test?
Just test all the methods that you want.
Sure, you're gonna sort of test the methods, you might maybe test some edge cases, but that's probably not the first thing that comes to mind, right? So our testing has been a little bit willy-nilly, for lack of a more technical term, right? So what we want to do is come up with a better way of testing our code, okay? Do tests matter? Does having your code work properly matter?
Yeah,
Why?
I want code that works.
You want code that works. Why?
Why else you would want to do this? Because that would-
Because you're getting paid to write the code.
But probably not gonna get paid well if you don't put the code that works.
Okay, so if your code doesn't work, you probably will not keep your job. What else? Why else do we care about our code working properly?
Then like other pieces of code, like you don't know, you have to check it step by step to see if like there's a certain piece that isn't working, or then you're gonna code.
Okay, so like dependencies, so like other code may depend on the code that you're counting on working, right? Unlike the AP where it says, you know, even if your code doesn't work in part A, still write part B. You can't do that in the real world, right? Part B won't work either if part A doesn't work. Yeah, is it ever like life and death for your code not working? Yes, it is. There's been plenty of cases where code did not properly function and people died. Okay, so one specific case is Airplane had code that was running off of all of their systems were built off of essentially a timeline. They crossed the international date line. All of their systems failed and they crashed. Some of the space shuttle errors have been because of bad code. So there are instances where bad code will kill people. Imagine a self-driving car and bad code. You can sort of imagine that there are potentially serious consequences to that, right? And especially, yeah, a whole host of things. Okay, so we need a new way of doing this. So what our goal here is to, we're just gonna write a sort, okay? So we're gonna sort strings. So the way we're gonna go about this is a little bit different entirely than both the way we've done anything before, as well as the way that you'll probably do things going forward, okay? So you've got this sort method, and what would be the normal way we tackle this? If I said write a sort method, what would you do?
What type of sort do you want?
Good question. Selection sort. Selection sort. Just generically, what are you going to do? If I told you to write selection sort right now. No, don't look it up.
I would ask what selection sort means.
Okay, I tell you, you should remember from AP. But beyond that, generically, what are you going to do here? Starts. What do you mean start sorting? How do you start sorting? Okay, so in other words, what generically, what are you doing?
Going through the array.
Yep. So you're gonna write some code, right? That goes through the array and attempts to sort it in some way, shape, or form. Okay? We're not going to do that because then how do you test it? Donald, how do you test that once you've done your selection sort?
All of it. Option.
Okay? So you're gonna, Ian, where are you gonna call the function?
Test sort dot Java.
Oh, no, forget about it. We don't even know what test sort is right now. In the main method, you're gonna have some sort of main method. You're gonna call the method and see if it does what you think it's supposed to do, right? Okay. So we're gonna do something entirely different, which is that we're going to have this nice public class test sort, okay? And we're going to have some classes here. So we're gonna have, I've sort of given you these methods. We're gonna have a public static void test sort. Okay. And in order to test whether or not a sorting method is going to work, what do we think we need to do here? how would we test if this is, so first of all, what are we doing? What are we sorting specifically?
Array, like string array.
String array. So we're gonna have some sort of string array. Right? And how would we test if it's working or not?
Print it out,
What do you print it out?
print this array out and see if you sort it correctly.
So you're making some, you're jumping like 3 steps ahead. What do we need to do first?
Create another array, like that is sorted correctly.
Yeah, so we'll give it some array, and then we'll give it some array that's the correct ordering, and we'll see if they're the same thing. That make sense? Okay. So that is exactly what we're gonna do. So we're gonna give it some string input. So let's go around the room. Gordon, give me a word. Shumba. Logan, give me a word. Mary?
World.
Alex, you're late. You don't get to give me a word. Donald,
Java,
take out your computer, get to IntelliJ, Java. How many words do we want to actually do here?
5,
Yeah, give me one more word, Tony. Sorry, it's in your cutout.
Alex.
Alex, perfect. Thank you, because that's, I wanted an A. I wanted an A word, so that's perfect. Okay. Why are we getting an underline there? Oh, what do I need to do to that? Yeah, that is, well, not parentheses, square brackets, because that's not an array. All right, now what should come out of this? And again, we got to think about sorting an array of strings. What does that mean to sort an array of strings, first of all? Alphabetically, sure. So it should be what? Alex. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Come on, folks. Java.
Okay.
Oops. Logan. That's why I didn't want to do too many. Sorry. I didn't, Shumba. I just not, my typing skills right now are not great anyway. And what we say, world? Does that look correct? Let's make sure that's correct. Okay. So then we're going to call sort. How do I call sort in a different method? Dot sort off of what?
Oh, you need to call it class.
I need to call the class, and my sort method, of course, is in sort. I've got it right over here. Public static void sort. I've made it a static method. Okay, so public static void sort. Why did I make it static?
Access without creating an object.
Yeah, I don't want to create a sort object and then do that. I want it to have it be a static method. Okay, so I'm simply going to call sort, capital S, because I'm calling the class name. I then call the method name sort. I'm going to sort the input. And then I need to decide, I need to decide how to test if they're the same. How do I test if they're the same?
Their elements are same.
Yeah, so I could do exactly what I have up here, right? No. Why can I not use not equals?
Check the.
They're not pointing on this.
They're not aliases.
Yes.
They are not aliases, so this is not the right nomenclature. So what should I use here? Dot equals. I might think that dot equals would do it, because that looks more correct. Oops, got some sort of funny highlight there. Condition, okay, input dot equals expected if, and what do I need to do here? Exclamation, I still need to say if it's not the same thing, then print this thing out. And then what do I have to do in my main class to see if my test sort is actually just even going to run? So I do have a main method in test sort right now. What do I have to do here? Do I? Think about it. Does test sort even take an object? Does it take an array in?
No.
No. So what do I have to do? Just call test sort. I just need to call test sort. Okay, because again, Mary, you're right in the sense that normally if I was running this, I'd build an array and do this here, but I'm doing it inside the method. Okay, so that's my actual test. Okay, So now when I run this thing, it's not gonna like it. Okay, input and expected don't match. But I actually have a little bit of a problem here. Because what is the dot equal doing?
Checking if the elements are the same.
Here, let's just try this for a second. I'm gonna see if I can do this eloquently. So what's a way to test if my test method is working? Do we expect it to say right now that input and expected don't match?
Yeah.
Why do we expect that outcome?
Not-
Because I haven't done, the sort method doesn't do anything, so I haven't done anything. So what's a way to test if the sort method is actually doing what it's supposed to do?
Just make input and expected the same.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna cut that. I'm gonna drop it over here because I really don't want to retype it. Right, and then I'm gonna take this, copy that, drop it in here. It's still highlighting this input dot equals expected. It doesn't seem to like this very much. They still don't match. Why? Clearly something's wrong with this not input dot equals expected. Where do we use that? Where do we use that? Dot equals.
For strings.
For strings. What are we trying to compare? Arrays. How do we compare arrays? I could use a for loop, but is there something simpler? Can I compare the whole array?
Does equal.
What does equal tell me? What would equal tell me?
Same address.
Yeah, if they're pointers to the same thing. Are they pointers to the same thing? No, they will not be, and they won't be after I test sort either. So that won't work. How do I check equality with arrays? If I'm not using what?
Nobody else did.
Alex, that's what we did. Dot equals. And what does dot equals work for? Strings. We're trying to compare string arrays. So I could use a for loop and work through, which is where we're going to get. But there should be a way to compare arrays. How do I figure that out? I say, hey, arrays, Java equals method. Let's find out what that thing is. Arrays dot equals. Okay, cool. Method, wait, and what's tricky about this? How do I use the string dot equals? How do I use string dot equals? Well, what are input and expected? If these were just strings,
It's a string.
it's a string with the dot notation after the string. So it's one string compared to some other string. Is that what arrays dot equals is doing? It can't be, because the notation is arrays dot equals. And the nice thing about IntelliJ is, first of all, it's telling me I can't resolve this. I got to import arrays. So if you just highlight over arrays, it'll import java.util.arrays. So do that. You guys should all be doing this on your computers because you're going to be doing the next steps yourselves. Okay. And if I do dot equals here, it doesn't like that either. Whoops. Oh, I just clicked done. If I do dot equals here, cannot resolve equals in arrays. Boolean equals long. Okay, so I should be able to put in input, comma, expect. There we go. Now let's run this and see if this works. Now it's again telling me that they don't match, but I'll go ahead and do the exact same thing I just did. Hopefully I can just use my biggest complaint about Macs and not having a mouse or being able to scroll over all the things that I want to do. We're going to copy that. We're going to drop it in here. We're going to run it because now what should it say? Right? This is the way to test whether this method works at all.
Oh, nothing.
It should do anything. It should just do a print. There we go. Nothing's happening. Is nothing a good thing? Nothing's good. It means that it's working. Okay, so that works. I could compare the arrays themselves. But does this tell us anything? Even if I have this error message and I sort and it comes out right, is it being particularly helpful if I'm wrong? It's not, right? Because all it's saying is if it's wrong, it's just saying, hey, input and expected don't match. And if an autograder gave you that, or if I said that to you, hey, guess what? Your input and your expected don't match. Is that particularly helpful? No. So now we're back to what we really want to do here, which is we want to do what?
Which element doesn't?
Which element doesn't match? So how am I going to do that? Like a for loop, not like a for loop, a for loop, right? I suppose it could be like a for loop if I were using a for each loop or something like that, but a for loop. So write your for loop and check each one of these elements, right? So we're going to do something like you guys do it, but.
We're assuming they're the same way.
Yeah, sure. We'll assume they're the same one. Yeah. If I could spell length, that would be helpful. What's up, Alex?
Or can I just talk to you about afterwards?
What do you want to talk to me about after
Oh,
this?
just the to be helped,
We're not talking about 2B at all. We're totally changing gears. So we're not talking about 2B at all today.
Oh,
So focus on this.
okay. Maybe. Okay, I'll just ask you after class.
Yep.
For some reason, some reason my sort, it says for the sort input, it's red for sort.
Mm-hmm. Because we haven't done anything in sort.
And then.
The whole point of what we're doing here is what? Testing first. This is called test-driven development. So what we're actually doing is writing our tests before we write our code. Okay, so what do we know is going to happen when we run test sort to start? Why is it not? Because I haven't written the method yet. It can't possibly work. If it's working, then I've written it wrong. Okay, so it should not work. The whole point is that it will fail when I do this, right? Yeah. Go ahead.
For some reason, I don't know why, but my input dot length, the dot length is red, but I already created the string. And then the dot equals is red. Like when I feel like I'm doing it right,
Okay, I'll take a look at the second. If what did I do wrong here?
error message if what.
Oh.
So at each index needs to be equal.
Okay, it's not a problem.
That's fine.
Well, yeah, right, so hover over the 4. Look what happens if you go hover over 4, because it's giving you an error there. Just hover over it. Okay. No, it's not. So just start writing your for loop. I don't know what the sheet's giving
So
right now.
just each individual index of the
Yep.
string needs to be equal.
Mhm.
Is, um, and if it doesn't equal, then you return error message, yeah.
And we could do something like, we wanted to be really fancy. We could do, maybe I'll do it on a different line. No, I don't want to do that, do I? Yeah, sure, why not? So what should I be getting out of this thing? Or if this works, what should I be getting? right? I should be getting the expected at I. Got. Let's see, oops. Plus. Got. Plus, what do we get? We got
Input.
input at I, right? Does that make sense? See if that's correct. Nope, what did I screw up here?
I don't actually what you're doing with the second line.
13. Oh, plus.
It's, you're saying expected I and input I, isn't it? You're just gonna be. Gonna do the same thing.
Okay, let's look and see, Alex. Okay. Input and expected don't match at 0. Should be Alex, got Shumba. Okay,
Oh,
Yes.
I got it.
it's telling you what it is giving you and what you should be getting. Okay,
No,
I don't necessarily like this layout particularly much, so I might do something like this. Right, and run it all on one line. Yeah, that's nicer. Input and expected don't match at 0. Should be Alex, got Shumba. There we go. Okay. Awesome. Now we got to come over and think about how we do selection sort. All right. Whew. How do we do selection sort? Let's just say we've got here. Oops, selection sort. So this should be reviewed from the AP exam. Hopefully we'll remember. Oh, we're doing strings. Let's turn it this way. What were some of our strings? We've got Alex, small a Alex, Shumba. Give me one other word. Actually, give me two other words.
Logan.
Logan. We'll just do those three. All right. If we've got this, how do I do selection sort? Don't look it up.
So if that's the one that looks at the minimum, right?
There we go. So we're not worried about pointers, we're not worried about anything else. We're just worried about the steps of this thing. We're gonna put 3 steps. So we do what first out? Gordon?
We find the minimum of the array.
Find min. 2. What do we do next?
Move them into their beginning.
Yep. So we move the min to, and do I move it to the beginning? What do I do here?
Swap.
Swap. I swap the min with whatever at the place I want.
Yes.
Then you go through the string again.
Swap min and other, not max. Well, sure, we'll call it first. Even though we'll see.
Yeah,
Okay. And then 3, what do I do?
think, go through the,
You
and
do
go
the
through the
same
swing
thing
again,
with the rest
go
of
through
the
the string and find the second small.
Do the rest.
rest.
Okay, increment, iterate, whatever you want to call it, right? So I swap those 2. What's the minimum now? Logan, you gotta, it's hard to think through, like, at least if you're anything like me, it's hard to think through minimums with words. But Logan is now the minimum, I find that, I swap the min in the first. Ooh, I just sort of discovered a little bit of an issue with my algorithm, but that's fine. Do the rest, there's nothing left, I'm done, boom, okay.
Need double for the probably then. Because
Okay, nope, not gonna use double for loop. That's what you learned in AP, a double for loop. We're not gonna do it. So we're gonna write down our steps. First step, 1. We're going to find the minimum. 2, we're going to swap min and first, although see the problem already with that maybe. 3, do the rest. Okay. Now, we haven't really focused on this all that much, but I'm going to verbally put this out here. Part of test-driven development and part of the way that you should be building your structures as we go through going forward is building really bite-sized sort of pieces and methods. Okay. So instead of like, oh, just doing this all in, 30 lines of code or whatever, we're going to build methods for each one of these. Okay, so if we're doing that, oops, okay, we're going to first, why can't I go back? There. Oh, because I don't have anything in sort. Okay, so what I need to do is we're actually gonna, you know what? I lie. We're gonna grab these 3 steps. We're gonna pull them out of there. We're gonna put them in here because I was inside of the method. So what is this gonna be called? We could actually make this a private method. So private, right? Why is it a private method?
There's no, why would they put it?
Right, they don't care about finding the minimum, they care about swapping, right? Again, when we call a swap method or when we call a sort method, you don't care about what's happening under the hood. Is it a binary? So, you know, what type of method? I don't care. It's assorted. Okay. So private, what? Static, void, find min. Do I need to pass something in here?
Oh,
Right?
Yeah, I probably need to pass in some sort of string array. And guess what we're going to do? What do you mean loop through it?
Like, do a for loop and find them in.
we should have a variable called min.
Okay. But what are we doing today?
Oh, then just
Oh,
like
sorry.
get the first character. Oh, do you?
Thank you, Mary. We're testing. We're doing test-driven development. So we're going to come back over to test sort. Okay. Do we know that our test sort generically works here? We do. What's the problem with this particular test sort?
They're not checking it alphabetically.
Is this kind of like just ugly and
Yeah.
not very much fun? Okay. So, Tony, how are we going to do our code from now on? Testing our code from now on?
What do you, like auto graded?
No. Now you get to make the stuff that you were making earlier. That's why I'm putting you on the spot.
Or just like do a for loop?
Nope. What did you say earlier? So the part of the problem is, do you all really want to write this type of code for all of your methods? Does that look like fun? No, it doesn't particularly look like fun. Writing that kind of code would be tedious. So the beautiful thing is that someone went out and did, I'm going to go ahead and just show you, this should more or less like what we did, right? We have our input expected, we called the sort, we iterated through, and we did this big long statement. He threw in a return statement here, so it just gave you the first error, whereas what we did, so we could go in, right, and throw in a return statement down here at the end. So it's just going to give you the first one. It depends on how you want to do it, right? Do you want to show your user just the first error, or do you want to show them all the users, right? Errors. So right now it's going to say, hey, at 0 should be Alex, got Shumba, right? So that's one way to do this. But we have a really nice thing here, because this code right here is going to be, can we imagine that we're going to have to do this in every test case that we write? Every test method that we write? We are, but we don't have to, okay? This is something else. We're going to use, and unfortunately he gives it to us in assert, which we don't want, which is a truth. There's different types of testing units. We're going to stick with JUnit. It is by far the most widely used. And as a matter of fact, you can go into CodeHS for free. I might even give you some practice in there in CodeHS, or not in CodeHS, in Codecademy. It has a whole section on JUnit, but it is pretty much the one that you're going to find most often, okay? So instead of all this code, all we have to do is, and I got to remember the terminology because I just don't use it that often, so give me 1 second. We're going to write a test that looks like, okay, it's going to be org dot JUnit dot, I want a lambda, assert dot assert equals, is that capitalized equals? See, this is where I have to look it up sometimes. Assert equals, assert equals. And then I pass in input. I'm gonna expect. Okay, that one line right there takes the place of all of that code right there. Boom, that goes away. You'll see JUnit. I don't know why. You tend to have to add JUnit every time. So just hover over where it's read JUnit. It's going to ask you if you want to add JUnit to your class path. Say yes. It's taking a hot minute. Not sure why. Why did that not work? JUnit not.
Yeah, it's not working.
No. All right, let's look at other possibilities, more actions. Let's try JUnit 5.
Is it supposed to assert array?
Well, that shouldn't matter in terms of adding JUnit to our class path. It should be, but they both work. All right, so if I do assert array equals, that's the more proper way of writing that. Oh, is JUnit now? Oh, that's funny. Let's test that and see what happens. Okay. Cool. That's funny because theoretically, it shouldn't give you read on the JUnit itself. So just so everyone checks in for a second, assert equals is a deprecated method, but it should, I don't know why it was still giving me read for JUnit, to be honest with you. It'll give you the exact same answer if you look. Okay. One of the reasons, what does a deprecated method mean? Yeah, so right here it says it's deprecated. Why can I still use it if it's deprecated?
When the system is allocated,
Why is it still in the system?
counting for a union.
Well, if I wrote test cases 5 years ago before they deprecated it, right? And I wrote hundreds of test cases using assert equals, and then they deprecated it. Do I want to have to go back and rewrite all my code? No, you're counting on the fact, people are counting on your code to be consistent. Okay. So if you ever write a method and it's a method usable by the outside world, you need to keep it, right? You can stop updating it, but you can't get rid of it. Okay, so assert array equals, it looks like, Mary, you're having some trouble, and I'll give you a hand in a second. What you should get out of this, does this look something like what we just did? Arrays first differed at element 0, expected Shumba, but was Alex. That's it. And instead of the whole for loop and everything else, I wrote one line of code. Org.junit.assert array equals input expected.
Whatever. You get the most weird stuff on IntelliJ. Create a method test order. Are you spelling it right? I know I'm being a little bit weird, but are you spelling test order right? Oh, make sure you uncomment your, oh wait.
Oh, just.
Oh, you can throw it there. Just run it. What happens when you just run it? Yeah, that's fine. So we're just not using it anymore. We're using arrays. We did the array code. Go ahead and hover over. That's not even.
Oh, check your curly braces, I think you closed out, you kept one of your curly braces, it was trying to, it was looking, your main method was wrapped up inside your other method. There you go. Okay.
Oh, that's not.
Check your curly braces here to make sure if you're running into issues, right? Just make sure your curly braces, your test sort, that you didn't keep a curly brace from your for loop previously. Okay? Everyone good on that? Okay. All right. So we have public void test sort. Now what we need to do is what? Public void. What? Public static void. Well, what are we going to test now? Test find min. Test find min. Okay. Try it. Try and think about how, and you may go ahead. What you can do is, if I were you, I'd take all this. I'd copy the code from your test sort. Copy it. I wouldn't erase it. Don't erase it. Drop it in here and think about now what expected is. Okay. And of course, we're not going to call sort. We're just going to use the find min method. Okay. Find min on input. And think about how you would restructure that to get what you want out of it.
Error in the words, what did you say? Right.
No idea. So you're trying to change this code to find the min. One thing we should do over here is actually put something in the body of the method here, right? So for this one, let's go ahead and return. Let's just return null. Okay, we can do that up here as well. Oh, find min. What is find min going to return? What type of thing do we want find min to return? String. Okay. So then the return null works. Okay.
Sort out the return now. That one would work.
You're right. Yeah. So
You didn't return it.
we can just
You
get rid of
want
it.
the index?
That's a good question. And one we'll have to figure out as we go forward. Oops, that's not what I want. Okay. I want to do is go back over here. So Alex, what are you running into trouble with? Yeah, typically when you get that, you're missing a curly brace somehow. And you can't return null in that first one. Just get rid of the return null out of the first.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm missing a semicolon for something.
Okay, so when we find min, what's our expected here? Alex. All right, so we can get rid of all this. And then we need to, we're not asserting equals here. Assert equals input. And we have to think a little bit about how to do this because we want to sort find min. What is find min giving us? Well, the way we structured it, what is it giving us?
All the index.
Well, no, not the way we've written it.
It's a string, right?
It's giving us a string right now. So string return. Oh, actually, that's a bad thing to do. Equals sort dot find min. That should give us has private access. Oh, wait, it has private access. Change it to protected. Let's just use protected because that's going to be the better way to go. Okay, so protected. Now when we come back over to test sort, we have string whatever, and I'm going to assert equals, I don't want to assert equals, right? What method do I want to use here? Yeah, actually we do want to assert equals. And I want input and expected. No, I don't want expected here. I want return, yeah, and expected. Right? Because what I'm trying to check is I want Alex to come out of this thing, right?
Right.
And what I'm getting out of it is return. And when I run this thing, what should I get? I should again get some sort of failure. I now just got the same error that I seem to be telling everyone else to watch out for. Get rid of that. Find test min. Did I just screw up something else here though? Let's see.
Why do they get like a semicolon error?
Okay, let's see. Expected Shumba, but was Alex. So these are clearly, what's the problem? What should we have expected? So I've misordered these things, right? So I should do expected and return over here. That's the way the arguments should be clearly from the error message. Because I should have expected. No. Why that didn't seem to work properly again there.
Find min doesn't.
No, but I shouldn't be getting Alex. I should be getting, these should be switched. Should be expected Alex, but was. Why are they both giving me the same way? It should be expected Alex, return Shumba. Because it doesn't work. Why are my arguments wrong? Why is it giving it to me the same way both ways? Okay. So we'll need to look at that. Either way, it's failing. It's giving me the right piece, but I'm not sure why. It should be telling me this way should be working. Not sure why it's not. What's up?
Isn't it, you do the finish the min method?
Yeah, yeah, do it, find min.
Don't we have to, sorry, what?
It's not gonna work. Is.
Correct. The whole point for the fourth time is that we're testing first. We build the tests that fail, and then we go make the tests pass.
If your find min returns a string, can you just use the dot equals method?
Here you probably could use the dot equals method. What do you mean the dot? No, what do you mean dot equals? Sure, I could use dot equals if I want to go back to a for loop and 5 lines of code.
I mean, if your find min only returns like
The whole point is staying within the JUnit framework.
Okay.
Could you? Yes, but then what would you have to also do?
'Cause
Mm,
I'm not sure, because find min, are we only returning like the first word?
Yeah, you're just looking for them in.
So,
But then you'd have to also write the error statement, which the JUnit does for us. The point is to have it test. If you don't want to bounce back and forth between having JUnit tests and then your ad hoc tests and JUnit tests and ad hoc tests, okay? So we could go look and look at, let's go look at this because I'm not being particularly clear on this piece. So let's come back over here and do this and arguments. Let's look what our arguments should be for this thing. In JUnit, assert equals method is used to assert two values are equal. One is the expected value. This is the value you expect your code to produce. Two is the actual value. This is the value your code actually produced. So it should be expected, Alex, return. I don't know why we're getting the wrong comparison failure. Let's get rid, why are we getting the wrong error failure? Why am I getting the wrong message? Everyone look up my code. What method am I trying to test? Yeah, I'm running test sort. I want to be running this method. That's why. So we're going to leave, we're going to comment out test sort because we may need that. We are going to need that. But let's try find min. And now it should give me the proper one and saying, hey, expected Alex, but was null. Oh, right. Why was it null?
Return null.
Because I returned null. Okay. When I called min. So that's good. We like that. That's exactly what I expected. Cool. Now I need to go over and write what?
swap.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this super modularly. We're gonna do, oops, I just went to the wrong place. We're going to run the test for this thing, then we're gonna build this thing. So write the method to return them in.
I figured out what I was doing.
Good.
For private static void pending.
So like, the find min method, if they have the same, like, first, like, letter, do we just keep the min?
What do you think? If I had Alex and Apple, should I differentiate between the two? Yeah.
What was it? Not the method, with string, there was a dot something method that finds like like alphabetical order.
Mhm.
Comparison, but I forget what it was.
Compare to.
Compare to, exactly. That's what you need. You got to figure out how you sort of want to do that. Some really weird error messages. IntelliJ is. It's almost too proactive in throwing error messages. Like I'm writing my for loop and it's telling me that my for loop is empty. It's like, yeah, because I'm writing it.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops. Mm. And then when you're done with that, what should you do? Once you've written your sort method, go over to your test class and it should work. You can.
Right idea, right?
Whoops. Yeah, along the right lines. Yeah. Remember, compare to will test character by character.
So I have to do dot substring.
No, the point is that you don't have to do something. It will compare character by character.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Compare to, so if I have apple and apt, and I use compare to, which one comes first? Which one's less than the other? Apt is less than apple.
Yes.
compared,
If you have two things that are equal, it like doesn't.
What will it give you if two things are equal compared to? Yeah, it's a numeric value, so it will give you 0. And in our sort, there's 2 ways to handle that in sort, right? If I have 2 words that are exactly the same, what are my 2 choices?
Should turn one of them.
Well, I can either swap them or not, right? Because they're the same. So I can sort of like, I can either do less than 0 or less than or equal to 0, and it's not going to really matter, right? That's, I guess, my point. All right, how are we doing with this? Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways if we got our swap. And again, you should be able to pop it over into your test and run it, and it should work. So you're doing an int. You can later time, because it is gonna be, when you go over to your test case then. And how do you write your test? Well, you didn't write your test at all. The whole point is to write the test first. That's what we're doing today. Is we write our tests and then we write our code. That is the whole point of what we're doing today. So we should write the tests, then write the code. Write the tests, then write the code. Don't just write the code. It will give you nothing. So what you'll see is when you run this thing, it should give you finished with code exit 0 or exit code 0, and there's nothing there. Right? In other words, there's no problems with the way you set up your test. Could we test this in another way? Sure, we could. We could do something like, well, maybe it found the right answer because it's the last thing, right? So what I could do is I could even just pull out Alex, and then I have to think hard about what word should it give me? Or maybe I could put Alex in a different place. How about that? I'll just put Alex in a different location and I'll run it again. Because the answer should still be Alex and it's still giving me the right answer. Okay, because I want to make sure that my test code isn't buggy either. Right? So when I moved Alex from the last position to the middle position, it is still, when I find min, it is telling me that the expected and the actual thing I'm getting, the better way of writing this is probably actual, since that's what the code uses. It's probably a cleaner way to, right? So string actual equals this thing. Is the expected and the actual, are they the same? Oh, what day is today? How are we doing with this? We only got 9 more minutes. We need to keep cranking through this a little bit. Actually, we don't really. What issues are we having with our sort?
I'm getting, when I test it, I'm getting. Let me show you my.
That looks so right.
Yeah, I'm not.
All right, I'll pull up my code because again, is anyone running into distinct problems? They have no clue where they're running this. Show me your code. Sure. You don't want a main method in here because that's what we just started. So. Current, yep, if current dot compare to. Think about current dot compare to. And I wouldn't use current, I use min, and look at your greater than or equal to signs, or greater than or less than signs. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. How we doing?
That's what I have, I do this.
So not working.
No, not that.
I don't know what your second if statement is.
The if array I think there's.
Is it working? Yeah, Judy. How about yours? Yeah, is that working? Okay, good. We're not sure what's going on here. All right, so let's take a look. What we should have here is something like this. Unfreeze. Right, we declare some minimum. What should we use almost always as our minimum? The first item in the array, right? Why should I not use 0? Or in this case, could I use 0?
No,
No, it's a string. What's the minimum? What's the least a string? I have no idea what the least string could possibly be, right? So we're just going to use the first thing in the array. I know that can be the minimum. Iterate through, and I'm just a couple different ways of doing this. You could declare a separate variable, but if array at I dot compared to min is less than 0, the minimum is array at I.
I think you need to check if the first element is the minimum, because if it is the minimum. Oh, never mind, it comes out.
Yep, it should, I believe it should cover that, right? So let's, you know what, that's a great question though, because I didn't think about that. What if Alex is the first item? Right, that would be probably more potential. First or last is usually where our loops will run into trouble, but let's make sure that mine actually takes care of that piece. I'm not getting anything here, so presumably if I put Alex first, it's still working. But that's a great test case to do. And what could we do? A whole bunch of these? Sure, I could, right? I could mess around with my mini test case here, right? There's a whole bunch of different ways I could use this to do this. Okay, so that's step 1. So that's done. And then what we can do is just get rid of that. Okay, and what are we going to do with sort? Well, we can even come up here if we want to and say, okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to find min on strings. I just use that as my name, right? So we know that's going to happen up there. Great. Step 2. Swap the min and the first. All right, protected. Weird to say protected as a first word. Protected, static. Swap min and first. What type am I returning here? What's my return type? Void, I'm just swapping things. Swap. Now what are we going to do? Hopefully you can all answer the question. We're going to come over and we're going to write a test for it. Public. Static. Void. Swap. Swap. And do we pass anything in here? You got to think about that. In my method over here, am I going to want to pass in things and swap?
No.
Well,
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Passes it in.
yeah, I probably need to pass it in something.
No.
Min doesn't exist here. So what do I want to give it? What index?
What do you wanna swap?
2 indexes. I need 2 indexes. So int index 1, comma int. I'm using too many ins there. Int index 2. Probably one more thing, because where am I swapping those things? Do I want to give it the array? Probably. I probably want to give it the string array. Okay, and then what would we do here to make this see if it works? Actually, we're not going to even put anything in here right now. Okay, so we're going to come over here. We're going to write the swap method. We're going to go ahead and we're going to again copy and paste all of the code from inside of my test find min. Drop it in here. I'm going to remember that down here, I'm going to do this now because I'm going to forget. And we're gonna say, we're gonna call test swap. We'll call that, oops, and in my test sort, I could call this test swap, not swap. Test swap. And if I'm test swapping, then am I giving it two strings? Arrays? What are my input and output? I need to go back to, actually, I should have done this differently. I'm gonna go grab my test code from up here, right? Because this is actually what I'm trying to do. I need two arrays to do this with. I don't want an answer like that. So I'm gonna come here and do this. Oops. Just do, whoa. Do that. And here, if I call sort.swap, input, comma, what do we want to swap? Let's swap 0 and what, 2? 0 and 2. Let's just swap 0 and 2 and see what happens, right? So I'm calling swap on 0 and 2. So actually, yeah, I can do that. And then I'm going to make sure that my expected is in fact what I want it to be. So I need to copy this over here. And if I swap 0 and 2, I should have, why does it not like any of that? Oh, one too many. Okay. So it should be swapping Shumba and world. So world will come first. I guess I could have made this my life easier if I'd done this slightly differently, but I didn't. So world and Shumba. I gotta grab that. It's rolling back on me. Does everyone understand what I'm doing here? Okay. Yeah, so what I'm doing is now my input is my original thing, right? And I'm just swapping Shumba and world. And I say swap my input 0 and 2, and it should give me that these two 0 and 2, 0, 1, 2 are swapped. When I run down here, I've got it in here. That's all I'm calling is test swap. I'm expecting what? I'm expecting failure, expecting Shumba, but was world. Inf arrays at element. I'm not calling any of these other things. Expected Shumba, but was world. And that's correct. It's a good question. It should be, I would assume, because we did it the other way, it should be expecting world, right? Yes. Expected world, but was Shumba. Why? Again, well, let's check our assert array equals. My guess is that expected should be first, right? Let's check it out. Let's come over here. Arguments. So I'm guessing expected comes first with this as well. Let's see, expected actuals. Yep, so I've got those flipped in both cases. So let's go ahead and make sure that it looks like every time we do this, the expected is first. Input second, find min. Expected, comma, input. Okay. And this is the way I expect you to work it out, right? Figure out whether or not you're getting what you, there we go. Expected world, but was Shumba. Now it's correct. Okay, so I look at my error message. I'm getting what I want to get out of it. I come back over to sort, and you write it out. So your job for homework is to finish this. Do we think we can do that in 45 minutes? So what you're doing is you're writing your test cases for each one of these things, okay? I'll say that your job for homework is to get this done, but you're going to find that when you finally get to sort, we run into some errors. So what I'd like you to do is make sure you finish the swap method and finish the do the rest is a little tricky. How do we think we're going to do the rest?
class you might get tested with this.
Maybe read going through this.
Yeah, we need to go through the rest of the list. We're gonna use test development. See what you can do with it in 45 minutes. Okay, don't spend forever on this. We're just putting on project 1B on hold for right now, because what we're gonna do is implement our own tests in project 1B. Now, the whole point of this piece is that we're taking our test development, we're gonna apply it to project 1B, so you're writing your own tests to test your code on 1B.
And it's okay if we're having a lot of errors with it right now.
Yep. I mean, ideally, you can work through some of those, but yes. So our goal here is to, again, we're stepping back, we're writing our own tests and going from there. Have an awesome weekend, everybody. That was a very short week. But I'm gonna not say it's too bad.